Because of the long summers here in Texas, I'm able to grow 2 rounds of tomatoes each year, one in the spring and one in the fall. That gives me plenty of chances to experiment with different growing varieties and different types of tomato plants. Today, I'll share what I learned about growing tomatoes in containers at home this summer, what worked, what didn't, and a few tips that might help you better your garden.
So the first thing that probably comes to everyone's mind when they think of Texas is the extremely hot summers. But this year was a little different. The first part of spring was actually very rainy. Because of all that rain, I noticed something interesting with my tomato plants. My clay and plastic containers were holding onto too much moisture, and that caused a problem called blossom end rot. If you've ever seen those black, sunken spots at the bottom of your tomatoes, that's what it is. It usually happens when the plant can't absorb enough calcium from the soil, and too much water can definitely cause that. So when it came time for my second tomato planting, I decided to try something new, grow bags. These are lightweight, fabric-like containers that are super easy to move around. What's great about them is that they are breathable, which means water drains more easily and the roots can get plenty of air. That makes it much harder to overwater your plants and helps keep your tomato roots healthy and happy all season long. If you are just getting into container gardening, I definitely recommend giving grow bags a try, especially if you live somewhere with unpredictable weather like Texas. Even though we had more rain than usual early in the year, things started to dry out pretty quickly once summer rolled around. That's when I realized I needed to make some changes to how I was watering my plants. For most of the spring gardening season, I was actually using an old hose that had been cut off and damaged during a crazy hailstorm we had earlier in the year. For a while, I thought this setup was working just fine. It got water to the plants, so what could go wrong, right? But after dealing with all that rain and noticing signs of overwatering, I started to understand that my watering method wasn't as controlled as I thought. So I decided to make an upgrade. I went out and bought a new garden hose and hose nozzle that lets me adjust the water flow for a more even and gentle watering. This might seem like a small change, but it made a huge difference. By using these new tools and sticking to a more consistent daily watering routine, my tomato plants started to look so much healthier. They weren't wilting nearly as much during the hot afternoons, and best of all, they started producing way more fruit. If you are just getting started with gardening, this is a great reminder that sometimes the little upgrades like a better hose or nozzle can make a big difference in your plant's overall health and productivity. Now that I had my watering routine dialed in, I was finally able to really focus on monitoring my plants and seeing how they were doing. As summer kicked in and my tomato plants started producing the most fruit, I noticed a new issue popping up: blossom drop. If you are not familiar with blossom drop, it's when the flowers on your tomato plant fall off before they have a chance to turn into fruit. It can be pretty frustrating, especially when your plants look healthy otherwise. After keeping a close eye on them, I realized this was happening every time our daytime temperatures climbed above 85 degrees. Once it got that hot, the plants had a hard time recovering, even after the evenings cooled down. So, I did some research and found a simple solution: shade cloth. Shade cloths are lightweight, breathable fabrics that you can drape over your plants to help block some of the harsh sunlight. They can actually lower the temperature around your plants by about 10 degrees, which makes a huge difference during those 90 to 100 degree Texas days. After setting up my shade cloth, I noticed that my tomato plants handled the heat much better. The flowers stayed on longer, and I had far fewer blossoms dropping off. If you live in a hot climate, this is definitely one of the easiest ways to help your tomato plant survive, even thrive, through the summer heat. I also considered using mulch, like straw or shredded leaves, to help retain moisture in my containers. Mulch is great for keeping the soil cool and slowing down how quickly water evaporates, especially during those hot summer days. However, in my case, I didn't notice a huge difference. Since I'm growing in containers, a lot of the moisture still escapes through the sides, especially with the breathable fabric grow bags I'm using. So while mulch can definitely help in garden beds or large pots, it didn't seem to make as big of an impact for my setup. But I'm curious, have you tried using mulch in your container garden? If so, let me know down in the comments whether you saw any benefits. I'm always interested in learning what works for other gardeners. On top of everything else I learned this season, one of the biggest takeaways was just how important consistent fertilizing is when growing tomatoes in containers. Unlike garden beds, container plants don't have access to a large amount of soil, so their nutrients can get used up or washed out pretty quickly. In fact, containers can lose up to half their nutrients through regular watering, which can leave your plants looking weak, pale, or even yellow over time. To fix this, I started applying a fish and kelp fertilizer every 2 weeks throughout the growing season. This kind of fertilizer gives your plants a nice, balanced boost of nutrients that helps support steady growth and strong root development. What I really like about this option is that kelp not only provides nutrients, but it also contains natural compounds that help make your tomato plants more resilient to temperature changes and heat stress. That's a huge benefit here in Texas, where the weather can go from cool mornings to scorching afternoons in no time. If you are growing tomatoes in containers, I definitely recommend adding a regular fertilizing schedule to your routine. One of the easiest ways to keep your plants healthy, productive, and ready to handle whatever the season throws at them. The last big lesson I learned this season, and honestly, the one that really puts the amateur in Chris the Amateur Gardener, is understanding how much direct sunlight you actually get and how to choose the right type of tomato plant for your growing conditions. In my backyard, I get about 6 hours of direct sunlight each day. That's because my house blocks the sun during the afternoon. While that shade helps protect my plants during the hottest part of the day, it also means they have less total sunlight overall. And less sunlight means the plants have less time to do photosynthesis, which is how they create the energy needed to grow and produce fruit. After doing some research, I found out that smaller tomato varieties like cherry, grape, or pear tomatoes actually do much better in areas with limited sunlight. These types don't need as much energy to ripen their fruit, so they can still produce a great harvest even if they are not getting full sun all day long. So, I decided to make that switch, and the difference was huge. My plants looked healthier, stayed more compact, and produced way more tomatoes overall. Sometimes it's not about working harder, but about working smarter. And choosing the right variety for your space can make all the difference.
So overall, the season taught me a lot. From managing water and heat to choosing the right tomato variety for my backyard conditions. Every challenge turned into a lesson. That's what makes gardening so rewarding. Thanks for watching, and as always, happy growing.